I really started thinking I had a problem. We would be having conversations sitting on the couch. Next thing I know, I'm asleep. Or if we tried to watch a movie, I fell asleep probably even before the movie was halfway through.
Your next favorite podcast pick starts now. Here's the Professor and Heather Ann.
Welcome to the Professor and Heather Ann. Although we don't have all the answers, we are here to encourage and excite you. We're sharing our lives to help you to make the most of the second half of your life. And today's episode is extra special. First of all, it's our first episode on camera. And in this episode, we're going to share our love story, talk about how we met and the
good, the bad, the ugly.
The good, the bad, and the ugly, because as we all know from our Shakespeare, the course of true love never did run smooth. And so we're going to talk about some of the ups and downs.
And ours did not necessarily run smooth. So we met online. Our very first date, we talked a little bit back and forth. We had some text messages, but our first official date was at a golf. It was a golf course. It was at a coffee shop. And so I asked you this the other day. What was your first impression of when I was walking up to you?
So there was a spark. There was something just from the first moment that I set eyes on you. But it's kind of difficult to put into words, like, what it was about, about the way you look, the way you act, that struck me. But yes, I knew before we even, exchanged greetings. I could tell there was.
You said something about you thought I was fancy,
elegant. So my career was in academia, and my first wife is an academic, and there's definitely a kind of aesthetic in the academic world where women, it's kind of what should we say, sort of subdued or muted. And in fact, academic women who it's clear have put a lot of attention into their appearance are in some ways actually like looked down on, certainly in the social sciences and humanities. So that was one of my first impressions, was that you were elegant looking, although what you told me is that in fact you were actually dressed very casually. And
it was what I considered for a date, especially a first date. It was on a Saturday. I was dressed more casual. I wore jeans. I wore a shirt that accentuated all the right places purposely, but I also had changed my clothes multiple times. Our date was technically my second date after almost 30 years. I'd gone out the night before with a gentleman, and so I felt like I was more dressed up for that because it was dinner, all of that. But yes, I was casual, but still wore heels.
Heels, yeah.
That was probably what did it. It was the heels.
And then, of course, I guess I can't count this as part of the first impression, but later in the date, when we left the coffee shop and went to a restaurant, and I saw that you were driving a red Lexus. And so that
was it. My red Lexus got you.
Yes.
Hooked you. Hooked. I didn't know that's all it took. Well, for me, it was, everybody in their mind, obviously I knew you were a retired professor. I had a vision in my head. You were dressed in slacks. You weren't wearing jeans. I think you were wearing slacks, weren't you?
Slacks.
And a button down, and you were wearing the appropriate shoes. You were not wearing tennis shoes or anything like that, because that probably would have been a strike against you right away. You had this Panama hat, even though we're In Oklahoma, it was still cute, but just definitely nerdy vibe, and I really liked that.
So a romance, a successful romance, it starts with this spark,
I think there has to be a spark,
but then
no matter what age you are.
yes, but that's not enough.
No, I think being that this, we had both been in long-term marriages, we know that that is not enough to carry a relationship. The next thing that attracted me more to you was we went into the coffee shop and ordered coffee and sat down, and we wound up talking for like several hours.
A total of what, like 7 or 8 hours, because
Our total date was 6 hours.
okay.
So we were at the coffee shop for several hours. Then we decided, oh, we want to continue our conversation because we were having great conversation. So the next, we decided to go to dinner, and then we finished off our date at Trader Joe's because you were driving back home. We did not live in the same city. You were driving back home, and you were like, I don't have Trader Joe's. I need
some things I could only get
at Trader Joe's. And then it was at Trader Joe's that I knew I was smitten with you. People that know me would know that it's very unusual, but you went off to go use the restroom right when we had got there. I found myself dancing in the aisle, which is not me at all. So I was like, oh, I'm in trouble. So then I stopped and literally was just standing there going, I'm in trouble. Great. Now what am I going to do? So that kind of started our whole
and
dating.
for me, the whole drive then back home, which was a little more than an hour, I was like grinning ear to ear and thinking this is someone very special. But what I want to talk to you about next is the good points and the bad points about love in middle age after having been in a long-term relationship. So, because there's the advantages and disadvantages of that compared to being, 20 and in you're
young and innocent and you don't know better. You're going into a new relationship older in life, you know better. I think that it might give you I think you might go in, I know I did, a little bit more cautious. Not sure I wanted to jump into a relationship, even though we had been, you had been divorced for several years. I've been separated for several years. So I just wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I knew that I enjoyed hanging out with you. So it was a lot of, what do we do next? But also, one of the things that we started doing very early, and I believe I drove this conversation, was what is it that if we continue, because you had asked me to date exclusively within a couple of weeks. You were very adamant about that. I was slightly hesitant, even though I didn't have any dates lined up or anything. That just seemed like that was very quick.
A big step very soon.
And I agreed to it. So we knew that we were in this exclusive relationship. And one of the things that I wanted to make sure, at least even for me, was that we weren't bringing in our old baggage from my previous relationship.
So this is the big disadvantage of as compared to when you're 20 and in your first love. So that you wonder about the other person. Are they reacting to something that I have said or done, or is it that I'm reminding them of their previous partner or partners, and they're like sort of reacting to the sort of specter
correct
of that person.
Yeah, correct. Basically the past. And that was something that we started doing early on. we don't have to do that as much now, but early on, when we would see the other person reacting, then it was just a question. We would sit there and say, okay, did I do something, or is this something that's happened with your, past partner? So we were very open about discussing that, and we were very open about making it our relationship and leaving the baggage at the door and not bringing it into our relationship. But we still did.
Oh, yes. And
one of the things that happened was we'd been dating a couple of months, and you started talking kind of marriage and stuff, and I was just like, I'm not getting married again.
So, and this was to me like it was a real downer. It kind of depressed me that you were just categorically, unequivocally rejecting the possibility of getting married again. And because it made me wonder if, maybe this means that, I'm someone that you're into right now, but you won't always be.
And it wasn't that; it was more of just my independence. And am I going to lose myself if I go into another relationship? I had spent the last couple of years since my ex and I have separated, working on myself. Mm-hmm. And especially when you're younger, for a woman, you become a wife, you become a mother. And I feel that a lot of women lose ourselves just because we're worried about taking care of our family, taking care of our kids, taking care of our husband. And I just don't think I was ready for that. But I also was able to recognize, it still took me a couple of months to recognize the trauma that I had to deal with as a child that caused me to date a little bit differently. I was not necessarily nice to the guys that I dated. Not that I was mean or anything, but there was always a wall. I always put up a wall, never let anybody super close to me. And you were the first person that I just started spilling all of my deep, dark secrets and all the deep, dark secrets of my family, because not anything to do with my ex, but even he doesn't know all of the stuff that you know. And I'm pretty sure that scared me as well, because we would spend our time together, you would leave, and I'd be like, why did I tell him that? Why am I sharing that with him? But
do you want to maybe summarize, for listeners who might not have heard this, like a real quick summary of your childhood and the kinds of things that you were revealing?
These were heavy things to reveal to somebody new that had never experienced the type of trauma that I had experienced. Never from your standpoint, all the things that I was telling you.
So yes, it was very shocking and disturbing. But what I inferred from it all is that you were a person of remarkable strength, that you'd been through all this and now had your act together, that
I grew up in a domestic violence. I was abused as well as my siblings. My mother was extremely abused. And then all of that came to a head when he went after her one last time, and she wound up in prison and he wound up dead. And that's not something I've really had to share a lot with. We were front page news, but it wasn't something I had to share with my ex-husband. He already knew the story. Yeah. My boys knew the story as well. But the thought of having to share that again with somebody, that was part of my hesitation of wanting to date again. But it was just an instant. I instantly felt safe. For the first time in my life, my soul felt safe with you. But that still doesn't mean...
But that also scared you.
It also scared me. We had issues because I still was, wanting to be close to you. But then it's like, I need you to just kind of standoff here?
Okay, there's, you might say, the telegraphic version, which you've just given our listeners, our viewers, but then there are the details, and the like, sort of the more you hear the details, the more disturbing it gets.
Yes.
And so yeah, those were things that you were.
So we might as well share it, because we still laugh about it to this day. One of the things that I knew I could trust you and help me feel safe was, so, we're known as the Professor and Heather Ann, but also you're Joe Manson, I'm Heather Simon. I'm Heather Crosley Simon. So one of the things, I don't know how it started, but we just kind of started making jokes about headlines. About
Headlines that could describe us.
headlines that could describe us, headlines that kind of make fun of my past and what happened to my family. Because one of the deep, dark things that even if you look us up online and stuff,
you won't find it.
You won't find it, that my mother was in prison with the Manson girls. And so
with two of the most notorious.
Yes. And so when we would start talking about marriage and different things like that, then I would be like, I can never take your last name. That just seems weird. It just, the whole connection, we just knew that, it was a God thing, but we had to kind of still make fun of it. So we would sit there and just randomly pick headlines where, we would think that it's, and we would laugh hysterically.
Murderer's daughter marries Manson.
Yeah. Was the most common one that we came up with. But that I knew, it's like, okay, if this man can sit here and make jokes and come up with headlines. But you also shared growing up when that happened, when people would call, your dad would make comments or your mom would make comments when people would call Manson.
So for a while, my mom would answer the phone by saying, now that I'm telling the story, I'm not sure this really happened or she just said she was going to do it. To answer the phone and say, Spawn Ranch, Charlie speaking.
So that I knew that, okay, this is the man. I found the right man. Now we just have to navigate all this stuff. And we had several months that we still had to battle past feelings that were not a part of our relationship, past relationships, because we both had failed long-term marriages.
And I didn't help matters by just a couple months after we started dating. So
you're going to bring this up?
Yes, that
okay.
My birthday is near the beginning of January, and I went
just a few days before mine.
Yes, so we celebrate our birthdays together. But for this, I'd already, planned to do this, and I didn't have the sort of flexibility to then say, well, okay, now it's an inappropriate thing to do, and I'm not doing it. And that was to go back to LA and visit my ex-wife and my daughter, who was also there for the holidays, and this friend of ours that we'd been living with.
Family friend. And participate in the
New Year's Eve party,
which is
a tradition
that you've been doing for years and years. It's our first New Year's together, and here you are going back to California. So my thought process was, you're not ready for a relationship. You're still holding on to your past relationship. And then you sent me a picture.
This is stupid.
Ex-wife. Like, this is what we're doing. And your daughter and your ex-wife. And I'm like, why are you sending me pictures of your ex-wife? So we still had a lot of things to work out. The listeners may not know that after I did not allow you to come to my birthday party because I was kind of mad and not sure. Hurt. Number one, I was hurt. Didn't understand, but also my main concern was, here I found this guy, they've bared my soul, and maybe you're not ready to step out of that life. Even though you moved to Oklahoma, you walked away from the academic world. I mean, not walked away, but you retired, started a whole new life in a whole nother state. But maybe you weren't ready. And so that started playing in my mind, and wasn't sure if I really wanted to deal with that or not.
And when you would ask me this was right up front, so are you sure you're not going to just go back to your old life? And to me, this sounded ridiculous. But that was my own, like, not being sensitive enough. And I would...
Because women and men think differently.
Yes.
And we all have our own baggage, and we all have different experiences from previous relationships, long-term relationships, relationships that we had before then. I found myself wanting to slip back into, before I was married, it wasn't mean, but I know now, especially since our relationship and stuff, it was just a way to protect myself. I never let somebody get real too close to me because it was pretty easy to walk away. Not having those feelings was easy to walk away. So that just threw me into a panic. And a month later, on Valentine's Day, I broke up with you.
Yes. And the stories you told, because you told me a lot of these stories about the way you had treated men before you met your first husband. And so those, of course, were, upsetting to me, as I thought, well, maybe that's the real Heather. And, all the time she was married was just kind of like a sort of a detour. And now she's back to being sort of callous and just viewing men as disposable. So we inadvertently sort of
fell back into old patterns, I think is the best way probably to explain it. We did. We fell back into old patterns, old feelings.
And we pushed each other's buttons.
We did. It was easy to fall into those old insecurities. So another insecurity, major insecurity I have that you had as well was when you're starting a new relationship and you're starting an older relationship, the intimacy. You have to learn how to be intimate with somebody new. And for women, it's already hard for us to be intimate just because of the way we feel about our bodies or the way we feel about ourselves. So being with somebody that's older, when you're in your long-term marriage and you've been with this one person for 20, 25 years, they saw you when, it's a shallow way of thinking, but they saw you when you were at your best and then when things changed. So it's easier to still be with that person, but when you're jumping into a whole new relationship and those insecurities come through tremendously. And one of the things we weren't sure we were going to bring up or not was a lot of times in long-term relationships, and why one of the reasons why a long-term relationship can end is that you sleep in separate bedrooms.
And it might start for some what
innocent
apparently
thing.
yes. One of us snores or both of us snore or thrashes about in their sleep, and so just so we can get some more sleep, we're going to sleep in separate rooms, but
it's hard to keep a marriage together if you were sleeping in separate rooms. So the whole intimacy thing is, even for you, it was a difficult thing to, at first, I scared you. And
yes.
So there's just so many factors that are going into when you're starting a new relationship. And that first 6 months, it was great. And we always had fun and we were trying new things, but it was also scary in determining, is this really what we want? After breaking up, I called you back and was like, okay, I don't know. I really felt like I was thinking you were going to think I was crazy because I'm like, okay, I don't want you to be out of my life, but I'm just not sure where we need to go next or what we need to do. And then we started talking about marriage and what long-term was. And I was willing to talk about marriage.
Why? Why after, earlier categorically rejecting?
Part of that has to do with my childhood trauma. I did not grow up thinking the white picket fence and everything's wonderful and stuff. I knew the deep, dark secrets, and I knew what happened behind closed doors. So I never envisioned myself getting married and having kids in the first place. So when I married my ex-husband, I didn't think that marriage was going to end. So the thought of doing a whole other marriage actually scared me, and I wasn't sure that's what I wanted. And, but I knew I didn't want to lose you. I knew you were very important to me. I knew that I loved you. I was in love with you, that for the first time in my life, I felt safe with a man. Not that I was, and again, I have to stress this, not that I was unsafe with my ex-husband, or I was very fortunate to not be. Guys that I dated, I've dated some really wonderful men in my life. But I just didn't know I was missing that until you and I started dating. And all I wanted to do was, you would come over to, hey, let's go to dinner, and we have these plans. And then you come to my house, because we did live, an hour and 20 minutes away, that we had to be at each other's places in order to, spend weekends, spend several days at a time. We couldn't see each other every single day. And I would fall asleep. I really started thinking I had a problem.
Narcolepsy.
You would come over, we would be having conversations sitting on the couch, and next thing I know, I'm asleep. And you just let me sleep. That was even the weirder thing. Or if we tried to watch a movie, I fell asleep probably even before the movie was halfway through. I would fall aslep. And
I thought, well,
I'd wake up and you'd just be there.
You sleep.
Not one time did I wake up and you were gone. So that probably would have been a bad thing.
So after the Valentine's Day breakup, it was either we're going to go ahead and get engaged, or we're going to
have to break up.
Yeah,
but
had to move forward.
And we've talked about this before, how a friend recommended, make a list. What do you want in a marriage? What do you want in a partner? And we decided to do that before we saw each other again. Our lists were pretty much identical. We've been asked several times now, what was your list? And it was basically that we had to, God was one of the number one things. Open and honest. Able to talk about everything and anything, which we do. I think listeners are learning, especially today, that we literally talk about everything. Good, bad, and ugly, and things that the other person doesn't want to necessarily hear.
Yeah. I think in my you've told me in my background, you find a lot of passive aggressive behavior, and that this was, had not a good thing.
That's not a good thing. Because I grew up in such secrecy, and we had to keep quiet what was happening in my house growing up. I learned this at 5 years old. You don't tell people what's happening in your house. That I changed that in my first marriage, not as much as we probably should have, but I also changed that with my boys. That we talk about it, the good, the bad, the ugly, and I had noticed that you didn't necessarily want to have the hard conversations.
That's right. You had to sort of coax it out of me. How are you feeling about this? And sometimes it felt like you were doing some amateur psychoanalysis.
Which I probably was. I needed to make sure. I wanted to make sure this was, we were heading in the same direction. Then we did some counseling. We did some marriage counseling, and that probably was the best thing. I think for me, in my mind, because you're a researcher as it is, but I'm also, give me the facts. I want the facts. Even in the type of business that I do, it's like, these are the facts. This is black and white. Here it is. And being able to go through that, we had all these different tests, and we had a weekly session, and being able to have these conversations was like, oh, okay, I am, my soul feels comfortable with you. You're somebody I can trust, I can be with. But it was a lot of work.
The counseling, I mean, some of it was, the counselor was a life coach.
More of a life coach.
Not a licensed.
Correct.
Yeah. But
I think that's what we both needed.
A lot of it was practical.
Yes.
Communication skills. But yeah, some of it were these tests that sort of were trying to elicit priorities and values to see how compatible the partners
And we had
are.
a lot of the same values. We were very compatible on a lot of levels.
Yes.
Even though we both came from totally different backgrounds. I'm in the business world, you're an academic. Nobody's childhood is perfect, but as far as I was concerned, you had a perfect growing up. Your childhood in San Diego was amazing.
No one was ever beaten,
knocked around,
locked in a room, starved, murdered.
You were able to get, eat food anytime you wanted to eat. So I think that was very eye-opening for me. It was like, okay, we're not as different as, we may have come from different backgrounds, but we're really not that different.
Exactly.
And then we got engaged.
Then we got engaged, and the day that we officially got engaged
was before a lot of we did not. That's another thing to talk about. We did not announce the engagement right away. I wanted to keep it kind of quiet. One of the reasons being is that my older son was not talking to me at the time, and he hadn't met you, and he was not talking to me because of me dating you specifically.
He didn't want to know anything about me.
He just didn't want to know anything about you. When I let him know before I started dating that I was going to start dating, and he just didn't want to have anything to do with it, which is hard later in life too. We all of our children are grown. They're living their own lives. I wasn't looking for his approval. It wasn't like I was asking him, is it okay if I start dating? But, that kind of had its own little strain as well.
And this is very common.
It's very common.
And I mean, after divorce, but sometimes even after widowhood, the grown child doesn't want their parent
Correct.
to find.
And we've
a
had
partner.
friends that's happened to them as well. So there's a lot of factors that go into dating later in life and getting married for the second time. I feel like when you're younger, it's, everything's great and you're puppy love and you fall in love. But when you get married at a younger age, you get to grow together. Unfortunately, you don't always grow together.
Sometimes you grow apart.
But when you start dating later in life and you start a new relationship, you're already when you're younger, you're trying to figure out who you are. When you're older, you already know who you are. It's like, this is who I am, kind of take it or leave it. And I think I kind of had a little bit, especially when I first started dating, that attitude with you is like, this is my past. This is who I am. You're either going to sit here and come up with newspaper headlines with me, or we're just moving on separate lives.
I think, for young couples, it's easier to maintain the illusion that they can change the other person. Now, almost certainly they can't really. Whereas when you're in your 50s, it's like, you're not changing. You're not doing any more.
If he's got little quirky things, you got to live with him, or you don't live with him. It just depends on what you choose to do. So
now my daughter actually helped me put together my online dating profile. So I said I need a photo where I have a spontaneous smile, not like the fake,
fake smile.
airline flight attendant smile. And she said, okay, here's what we do. Just like sing a song from a Gilbert and Sullivan operetta. And I'll just take lots of pictures, and we'll get one where you're smiling because you're genuinely having fun. And then and one of those ended up being the photo on my profile. But you told me later you didn't like my smile.
No, I liked your smile. You have a really great smile. It was the color of the shirt.
Oh,
it was
that's right.
So, but that was just me being me. So I still married you.
Thanks.
Though I did get rid of that shirt. Because that color was totally wrong for you.
Kind of a periwinkle blue.
It was a periwinkle blue that just is not. Blue looks great on you. Like, hence, blue looks good on you. But periwinkle blue does not look good on you at all.
But your older son eventually came around.
Yes, and it took him even another year to meet you, but it was fine. But we also knew going in that this could be a problem. This was going to be a problem. So when we did decide to get married, then one of the things that we talked about was, we would like to be able to bring our kids together, do things, everything. But if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. That's not going to make choice, that's not going to be decisions on our marriage and how we live our lives. But also that both of us are allowed, would go and spend time with our kids, because we weren't going to keep our kids out of our lives,
right.
Even though my son didn't participate at that time. My younger one did, my older one did not. I would still go to dinners with him and go to his house and, different things like that. You go visit your daughter. She's working on her PhD.
She's abroad for this entire academic year.
You just got back from Germany, going to visit her.
Well, this was one of the items in that list. I mean, some of the items were about what you already talked about, how we're going to be honest with each other and so forth. But some of them were sort of, you might call more practical.
Yes, being able to go on vacations by ourselves.
Right.
That we just didn't do everything together, but now we found out we really don't like going on vacations. But I didn't like you being in Germany for a whole week.
Yeah,
I actually missed you.
I did not like it.
It was too much.
Yeah, a few days.
A few days is good, but long term like that, we need to be traveling together.
Yes.
But we found out we like to travel. We like the same things. That was important. Both of us like to travel. So that was important that we liked similar things. But it was still a process, even getting married, buying a house, picking the wedding.
I think that there's this kind of like reciprocal or positive feedback loop process where feeling close together that lets you plan and carry out things together, like including very big things like buying a house. But then having done those things together then brings you closer. Mm-hmm. Like the more common experience or common challenges that you face, then the closer you feel. So these things kind of like feed on each other.
I think the main thing is the communication, is that we're willing to talk about the stuff. We're willing to, not that marriage is perfect and we're still trying to figure it out ourselves. But we have, old things come up, old feelings come up no matter what you try to do. And
that's right.
We've learned to still deal with those. And we've learned to communicate on that and not let it, we actually don't fight very often.
No.
But we have had a couple of blow up fights.
But we've never let them like last into the following day. And that's right. The key is just to, calm down and talk.
That's the number one thing.
and then talk very frankly about like what is causing this. What.
Why are you behaving this way?
Yeah.
Why is this coming up? Why is this an issue?
Because it may be that the sort of precipitating event was something that's actually very minor, but the event has like evoked feelings about much bigger and more troublesome things from the past, and that has to be gotten out into the open.
I think that one of the other hard things about a second marriage is merging stuff. We've talked about that on how we had to merge 2 households. But also, one of the things that I really appreciated, one of the many things that I've appreciated about you is that my suggestion on, yes, let's merge our stuff, but I think that it's also important that we go out and buy some stuff that's ours.
Yes. So.
And that doesn't mean it has to be brand new or anything, but just getting some pieces and putting it into our house, our first house together. And to me, it just was like, then that's making it our house, not this is my couch, that's your table, it's our stuff. So when I've made suggestions like that, you weren't just like, no, we're not going to do that. We can't do that. It was like, okay, let's go ahead and do that.
And so, it makes so the house feels like
it's
ours rather than one of us moving in to the other one's house.
We were fortunate enough to be able to buy a brand new house. It was already built. We didn't pick anything, but we did change a few things, and we made those decisions together. Again, making it feel like it was our house, even though we have similar tastes, but we still have some very distinct differences. And I believe that helped make our house feel more cozy, more welcoming. And I appreciate that you've always been, when I throw things out at you, like, we're going to go buy a whole new living room set. You good with that? Let's go. That you're just like, okay, let's go ahead and do it.
Well, I appreciate how you've indulged some of my unusual tastes. So,
like the
door in the new house.
The door in the new house, but our Lord of the Rings themed wedding.
Yes, this that you'd never even read the books, and
I'm an avid reader, but that's just not a genre that I've ever read. It's just never appealed to me.
And so when I told the story to people, they said, well, that this is someone who loves you very, very much.
That's true. But again, part of my past stuff was like, well, let's just run off. Let's go down to the courthouse and get married. And you were very adamant about that. You were like, no, we're not doing that.
Well, that's because, a lot of that is because, as we've said, we believe that God played a role in bringing us together. And
so we wanted a religious ceremony, which is something neither one of us had in our first marriages.
That's right.
So when we handled the whole wedding thing together, we did that together.
Yes, that was...
If I had to do that on my own, we probably would have been at the courthouse again. It's a lot. It's just stresses me out doing all of that. But we made a lot of decisions together, and there was, some things you were like, I would like this, and some things I would like this to happen. But for the majority of our wedding, it was just very...
Like you said, no operetta music.
No operetta music.
And I felt like, okay, well, you've given me the Lord of the Rings theme, so I'm fine.
Because we like all sorts of music. I more so than you like a lot of different genres of music. So that was something for you.
I wanted to dance the Merry Widow Waltz with you. But
yeah, we did.
No, didn't happen.
Do you know how to do a waltz?
I learned to waltz as a teenager. I'm sure it would all come back to me.
As a teenager. But you wanted to go and waltz in front of all of our closest friends and family that we hadn't even practiced or anything. Let's do a waltz. No. But we did have a hard time picking our song that we danced to. We did have a hard time. We did have a hard time picking music.
Yes.
But we did have a hard time deciding on what was going to be our song.
And it was?
Finally found someone.
I finally found someone.
So to
Barbra
me,
Streisand.
that really just resonated.
Yeah.
And you went along with it. I know it wasn't your top pick, but you went along with it.
It was good.
And here we are. Yeah. So what is some of the main suggestions and advice that you would give somebody who,
well,
as a man, looking for, because you started dating before I did. You went online, met some people. You knew you wanted to be married again.
Well, okay, and as from what I understand, many middle-aged men, divorced or widowed, they don't want to commit at all. So that
I didn't know that.
This is a complaint that middle-aged women have. Oh, the men my age.
We do. We follow this one lady.
Oh yeah.
That she tells about all of her dates. This has become her thing. This is her shtick. She goes on, she tells her, you're not going to believe this. And she tells about, and she has gone on lots of dates. She's online, and she's gone through lots of dates. So I don't know. We'll have to do you'll have to do research on this. Yeah. I don't know if it's they don't necessarily want to commit, or maybe they came out of long-term marriages and just want...
Or feeling burned,
yeah. Or they want to play, or, I was married for 30 years. I want to go out and have some fun.
Yeah.
But you knew you were going to get married again.
Yes. I was...
What was your driving force on you were going to jump into the dating pool? You were going to go ahead and start dating again. What gave you, how did you find the confidence to even do that?
Well, I assessed myself and realized that I've had an interesting life so far, and I have more interesting things to do, and I'm, in good health. God willing, I'll stay in good health for a while. So that what gave me the confidence was thinking, I have things to offer, yes, so my first marriage ended in divorce, and of course, there's in any divorce, both parties are somewhat responsible for the failure. But I never thought about that. Well, then that means I'm just not suitable, or I'm just not capable of being married. I thought, okay, that ended up not working, but I still have a lot to offer.
And I think that's the same with me when I decided, okay, I'm going to jump into this and see what happens, is that even though, I had my insecurities and everything, I knew, okay, I'm smarter, I am self-sufficient, so I knew that I had things to offer. And I'm finding, because we get a lot of questions from people that we've just met, or people that have heard the podcast, or, just different people we come in contact, is how did you meet? How did you decide this was the person? I'm just finding that a lot of us are afraid of taking that next step, afraid of, maybe I'm not old, maybe I'm too old, maybe I'm not thin enough, maybe I'm not smart enough. I'm just finding that a lot of people our age are not even wanting to... don't even want to try. Don't even want to try. I've had several women in their 50s tell me, I'm just going to be, by myself for the rest of my life. And part of doing this is sharing that just you've got to put yourself out there. And if you want to be by yourself, there's nothing wrong with that.
Oh, yeah.
But if you're thinking that you want to be with somebody, that, don't shortchange yourself. There's a lot of...
Yes.
One of the things that I did find is that I was a lot more open to who I would date than I was in my 20s. So I didn't have a specific type that I was looking for. For me, it was somebody that was funny, that could carry on conversation, that was intelligent, that was adventurous. It wasn't like, he had to look a certain way or had to have a certain career or anything like that, because you're retired. And so, that was something completely different. You'd already, okay, I've done my career, here I am.
So, would you describe that as, and it could apply to men and women, would you describe that as like relaxing your standards, or is it just a different kind of standards?
I don't know if it's relaxing, because you still have high standards. I don't know if it's relaxing, but I think it's just looking at your standards differently. Mm-hmm. So, one of the things, I'm not going to lie, I've had several girlfriends that have been remarried. I know several women that have remarried. It's the nerdy guys. Don't pass up the nerdy guys. The nerdy guys have a lot to offer.
That's great advice.
So I'm telling all the women out there, don't pass up on the nerdy guys. They've got quite a bit to offer, and they make you laugh. So we've talked about all kinds of stuff. Basically, our relationship. I think the main takeaway is, I think in certain aspects, a second marriage is easier, but in other aspects, it's even harder. We know that, we didn't really talk about it today, but we know, everybody knows this. You hear the statistics. Second marriages are more likely to fail than first marriages. But we openly talk about stuff. We're trying to make sure we're not bringing in past things into our current marriage.
This is essential.
I think it's very important.
And would you say that, men have more difficulty talking about their feelings than women, and so like the challenge here is mostly for men to open up?
Wasn't that a challenge for you?
It was a challenge.
I put the woo-woo in you. That's what we always say. I got you to bring out those inner feelings to be able to openly talk about them. Because again, none of us were taught any of this. I'm hoping that our children do better than what, I'm hoping I taught my boys better and how to navigate the, relationships and marriage and life and all that stuff. But our parents sure didn't talk about it. Our parents didn't, never had open conversation. That definitely was not talked about in my house.
But even my parents, who were, not a pathological case like your parents, they never talked about that sort of thing.
Never talked about feelings.
No.
So that's something that's important. We just all have to be grown-ups and go into these older relationships as we're older. Being open and honest about our feelings, our dreams, our wishes. Realistic. We're both very realistic.
You have to be
people.
realistic. Yes.
I did change a few things in your wardrobe. I didn't have to change a lot, but I did change your wardrobe.
Yes. Okay. So that we said earlier, you're not going to change the other person, but that's something you might well be able to change the other person.
Yes, but not much more of that. Well, whether you're dating, newly married, or just dreaming of what's next, we hope you walk away from today's episode with hope in your heart. It will work out as long as you keep your heart open and your expectations honest. We hope you've enjoyed this episode in which we've shared how we found love after 50, blended our families while prioritizing our relationship, navigate emotional highs and lows, and keep things fun and exciting.
Please subscribe and support our podcast as we have so many exciting discussions coming up, including guests, and we can't wait to have you along for new episodes. So join us here each week, my friend. You're sure to get a smile from lessons learned to mishaps. The adventures go on for miles. Here on
The Professor and Heather Ann.
Thank you for listening to The Professor and Heather Ann.